ability through design and for programming and having an ability to kind of have a blank slate or a blank canvas came in. Everybody received the Pew Foundation with open arms, and there was incredible work done and recommendations made and efficiencies found in reform discussed. And I mean, all of that work done, even if there was still more work than we had to bring the counties. I mean, if you take a fund that's right now filming, and you talk about lowering that crime to a misdemeanor, the counties will hear you say that and say, well, wait a minute, you're not fixing anything. You're just changing the jurisdiction to land in our county jails. Well, that could not be the case. We had to make sure that that wasn't what we were actually doing. So all the work that went in to make sure that the counties could buy in to this kind of justice reform, which again, Representative Hutchings and the work he did was, it was a Herculean effort. And so anyway, we're excited about that. And we think that that's one of the big heavy lifts that we've had this year.
Brief thoughts on you, or it was yours.
Representative Hutchings called this a game changer. What do you see as the impact of House Bill 348 criminal justice reform?
So beds, the prison population and recidivism. We're seeing that Utah outpaces the national average. Why is that the case? Utah is a state where we export, in terms of public policy, best practices on all fronts. This is one where we haven't. We've actually lagged behind in some of those reforms. And so recidivism is a high cost to taxpayers. It takes people's lives. I mean, most people that go into our criminal justice system come back out, but their trajectory is not as bright as you'd want for someone coming back out into society. We think we're drilling down on that. So we think recidivism, we think that the growth of prison beds needed will decline, and people will have a better chance. If you've been caught and you've been sentenced, and going and living within a prison population of real criminals might not be the best thing. And there may have been some assessments and some other treatment that could have happened that would keep you on a better path. And so we see that happening in that reform, and we think that's going to be that is going to be a game changer. You had a question?
Briefly, it's your first time as speaker. How has it been? I mean, this has been, and especially with the passing of Becky Lockhart. I mean, how has it been for you looking back on your first session?
You know what? This is our 13th session. We came in together, and I've been on a leadership team for four sessions before this role or this position. And I'm embarrassed to say I did not understand or really fully appreciate the job of being the Speaker of the House. And it has brought a lot more challenges, a lot more. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about these media availabilities. To answer your question, it's been an incredible learning curve for me in this role. And it's been an absolute honor to serve. I feel greater love and appreciation for our House members than I've ever felt before. You work amongst each other all the time. And when you're the whip, you're running on the floor, you're voting, you're speaking to a bill, you're working on a bill, you're holding a meeting, you're going down to committee. The Speaker has a different set of responsibilities. And it has allowed me to get to know my colleagues so much more than I've known them before, and trying to help and facilitate their legislative goals. The one thing I find myself regretting more and more each day of the session is that I don't have Speaker Lockhart to call. She had been my friend before she had ever run for the legislature herself, or before I had ever run. She'd been a longtime friend, she and her husband, Stan. And there are so many questions I would love to call her and say, so what did you do in this situation? Or I didn't know you were doing this all the time. Is this really what? And I have so many of those questions I would love to ask her. And so I miss her more probably now, just because there's so much that she quietly did and served in a way that I didn't ever have a full appreciation, even as her majority whip. When she was elected Speaker, that was my role, and I served in that role during her time as Speaker. And the things I didn't notice that she did, and that I notice now, is one of the big takeaways.
And how would you characterize
in addition to that, is there anything you look back at procedurally and say you would do different?
Yeah, I quit answering all your questions so honestly. You guys always bust me on them, you know? Jeez. I tell you something, next thing I know, they're hanging me an effigy out there. I got to be careful. No, I had I think I can tell the story. Representative Brian King observed one of my interviews or one of my quotes in the paper, and I had referred to the Republican caucus. And, he reminded me that we have a majority leader and that I'm the speaker. And, that's a role that I had to remind myself that, as a Speaker of the House, I'm not the leader of a Republican caucus. And I work hard to be the Speaker, not the majority leader of a Republican caucus. But that was a great reminder from our minority leader, Brian King. Our relationship is very strong. But in looking back, that's a role I have to serve in. And it took me a little while when I first started to really appreciate the mantle of responsibility.
What about Governor Herbert? How would you characterize your relationship with him? Because there have been some pretty public disagreements between you guys and the governor.
You know what? I think today's press conference, where we're going to move forward, looking for a way to provide health care for the coverage gap of those that don't have it. Gives us some time to work together and to find some common ground that we were not able to arrive at in such a short legislative session. The governor's been governor. I said this in the press conference. He's been governor for a long time. I think this is his 6th year. President Niederhauser has been the president. This is my first session as Speaker, and we're gonna learn those roles and those relationships. But I'm very optimistic. We're gonna see some great work ahead of us, and we're gonna get some good things accomplished. And I think my relationship with the governor is what you'd want from a legislative branch and an executive branch. I think it's very respectful. I think that we have our roles are different. What we do is different. When you're the governor, you don't have to convince yourself. That's an easy conversation, right? We have a different role. And so there's by design healthy tension there, as it's supposed to be, but it's never. I think that we can navigate that well, and I think that today was a very good sign of that when you saw that press conference, that there is a ground to plow together moving forward.
You did come in and have a tough session, a lot of heavy lifts, as you said, as a new Speaker. Do you think there might have been a different way to handle the Medicaid expansion issue, or you might have handled it differently in retrospect now that you have a session?
I think I'm very proud of the process that the House has gone through and the where we started and where people were back in December and where we are today. I hope people appreciate that the House of Representatives, we've traveled far in terms of where we thought good policy could be arrived at. And again, with the idea that perfect can't be the enemy of good. There has been great movement in the House, and I think that with the makeup of the House of Representatives, there was no way you could ever say this is what we're going to do, and the only way we could do this as a leadership team was to provide good information and hope that with good information comes good decisions. And I appreciate that. I think where we were handicapped, but again, it's by design, is a very, very short session, and some very, some big generational decisions, and we were not overlapping at the time you needed to. But I do think there's progress that's been made. I think the House is in a different place than it was back in December, which is a good thing as people coalesce. And we're going to take that spirit of progress and keep moving forward.
And you'll be able to move them along to accept what you come up with?
Well, we know our caucus. We won't come up with anything we think is going to make them upset. We think we're going to stay consistent with the values and the concerns and the things that we've discussed in our caucus meeting. And there's a lot legislators, both Republican and Democrat, that will intertwine with the work that we do. Nanner.
You talked a little bit about the plowing ground, and in the beginning of the session you said dynamite boulders. You feel like they've been significantly dynamited?
Many, a lot of them have. I think all the transformational things and big big things to do that are easy in politics, they've already been done by some other legislature. Some lucky legislature was able to have those to do. If it's a big deal, if it's transformational, it's inherently hard. That's just the nature of things. And if it wasn't, it had already been done. So I think we have done that, Robert. I think there's a lot of areas we can look at that we've made great strides and have dynamited some big boulders.
What do you think people at large need to understand about tax increases this session, the ones that have been discussed? What would you like people out there to know about the ones?
It's a great question. Especially in the transportation side, as we're contemplating potentially the formula change that would create the revenue. In 1997, this is what I've been saying, at least, Andrew, that in 1997, when that legislature raised the gasoline tax, the unit tax, to 24.5 cents per gallon, the price of gasoline before taxes was $1.09. So if you take a gallon of gas at $1.09 and you look at what 24 cents for that gallon would represent by way of a tax on a gallon of gas, what we're looking in Representative Anderson's bill, in terms of the floor being at $2.45 a gallon and a percentage of that, it's still less of a tax for that gallon than it was back in 1997. It's a mouthful. It's policy. It's not done well as a spin line. But I think we are very sensitive to the burden of our taxpayers. We have one of the fastest growing regions in the country. You have to have funding formulas for transportation that keeps the economy strong. Without people successful at their jobs and being able to pay their taxes, we can't pay the bills. So we have to look at that. But I think we've measured that very carefully, and we can make a strong policy argument that the changes we've made in the transportation or the motor fuel tax are good changes, and they were worth making, and in the long run are very worthwhile.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
No questions for Jim?